Welcome to my channel, Comic Book Noixe, where we talk about my comic book company, Digital Noixe, where we explain the characters and the storylines of the Digital Noixe universe. Well, today I come with something that came on pressing to talk about today, and it's of course the title that you see on the, I guess you say, thumbnail. The similarities between Delete and Marvel's MCU'S Ironheart. And I wanted to talk about it today because I never really paid attention to Ironheart and the whole series because I was so concentrated on my thing, and I wanted to make sure that, when I do my reboot of Delete, it wasn't influenced by anything that they were doing at Marvel with Ironheart. But when I saw the latest promotion of Ironheart, they said something about magic and technology. And the reason why a light bulb came on about it, it was like, oh, well, that's what my book is about, magic and technology. And that's the ability of Delete herself, the character I created. So I wanted to talk about the history of my comic book, the history of Ironheart, and the similarities that I'm seeing right now of the MCU. I'm not accusing anyone of anything for now yet on the Ironheart series. But I wanted to talk about it because when I come out with my reboot for a new generation, I don't want anybody thinking I'm copying Ironheart. And I'll just start now. The history of Delete. As I was growing up, I was an avid comic book reader as a little kid. I started drawing on walls as I was 6. And of course, when I was introduced to comic books, I think it was around, well, my brother had it when I was younger. I think I was around 6 when I first saw my first comic book, but I never associated my art with comics. But I really started drawing and copying comics when I was 11. And so I started to love comics, so I wanted to become a comic book illustrator. And then when I had to go to college, and I wanted to be a comic book artist, and I used to send, when I was like 17, 16, whatever, just send my stuff to Marvel Comics. And, just samples to see if back then you would mail it and to the submission office. And, I would go back and forth with that. But then I went to school of Fort Lauderdale, and I concentrated on fashion illustration to further my illustration endeavors, ability, but I still was drawing comics and wanted to break into the comic book industry. And then when I went to FIT 2 years later, I was around about 18, 19, I was 19, 20 or something like that. And I went to Marvel. This was like in the early 90s. And I used to visit Marvel every day. I was going to school and work, and I used to work in fashion and go to school at FIT. And I used to go to Marvel during lunch break and try to see if I could break in. I used to wait in the waiting room and everything and stuff. And I broke into Marvel somehow because someone saw my work there, an editor. And I broke into Marvel, and I worked for Marvel, and I got inside. And as always, I was always an advocate of diversity and everything. So I would tell people at Marvel, there should be more diversity. There should be more characters that are, of multicultures, from Asian to Indian and all this other stuff. Even though during that time, I think Jim Lee, a couple of others, McFarlane and all those guys working at Marvel then. And they started to make characters, but I felt like there should be even more diversity in the characters in Marvel, like create more characters just as powerful as the Hulk that are minority, because during that time it was still heavily, white heroes, especially white males, leading the whole Marvel universe during that time. Working with Marvel, I did a few books of issues of that. My first gig at Marvel was drawing Robert Townsend's Meteor Man. And I thought that was cool. That was cool because it was a minority character and I was happy to draw the character. I still think till this day it's a great idea that Robert Townsend created. And I hope he would do a reboot of it, or someone would, because it was a cool character and a cool idea. But I knew what I wanted to do was do more than just draw. I wanted to be a storyteller as well as an artist. Being an artist didn't really satisfy me. I wanted to also create stories. So I ventured off from the comic book world and started to develop my own comic book and the visions that I saw. And my comic book company, as you can see here on this platform, is called Digital Noixe. And with Digital Noixe, I created my first character called Delete. And I was creating Delete, and as I was coming up with the concept, and the reason why I was coming up with the concept, because I wanted to create a new type of hero that would have a different kind of powers than anything else that anyone's seen. And so I was thinking cyber magic, which is, with the whole internet thing was happening back then, and the whole internet world was happening, and cyber world was happening, things like that, and virtual reality was happening. I wanted to create a new modern take on a new power and a new type of superhero. And so I created this character in my head called Delete. It wasn't really formed fully, but I knew the powers were strong and correct, which was cyber magic. And I created a power called Magitech, which is magic and technology mixed together with technology and the power of technology. And I created this whole, power structure of what my character should be as a power ability. But I really didn't flesh out the character itself of that character. And I was just humming along and, just living my life. This was like the early, going into the late 90s. I was kind of creating this idea. I was in the comic book store one day, and I forget the name of the comic book store that I was in, but it was right across the street in New York City from the Empire State Building. And I was there, and I saw a group of kids, I guess taking a break or leaving school during that time. And I was, I always go there at this comic book shop. And I saw each of the kids say, "Oh, I'm this character, and I'm that character, and I'm this character." And there was one black little girl there that was saying that, "Oh, wow, I wish I could be a character. I don't see myself." She didn't say I didn't see myself. She say, "Oh, I forget what the whole thing was." But it was in terms of she didn't see herself as a character because she didn't see, I guess, a real black woman. In my mind, I was like, you know what? Wow. And I looked around and I was like, you know what? There are no strong black representation of black women as a lead in a comic book. Yes, there was Storm, but Storm was on the X-Men team during that time. Storm has white hair, and some people don't think she's even black or anything and stuff like that. So I just was like kind of spellbound by, my mind was blown because I was like, wow, she's right. I don't really think there is a strong representation of a superhero like Wonder Woman or anything like that, or Superman that anybody can connect with, or, Black Panther, the black male has it and stuff like that. So I was like, maybe I should make my character African American. And why not? I'm African American and I'm black and I know the black experience, and I know, why not create this character to be an African American woman? And because I don't see it as much. And Storm for me, was one of my favorite characters, of course. Storm and Brother Voodoo during that time. But Brother Voodoo wasn't, and I still don't think now that they use him to the full capacity as they could in Marvel and show how powerful he is. But those two were one of my favorite characters, along with Superman and all this other stuff. But I really was thinking about it, and I was like, wow, let me create my character Delete as and like that, and she would be like one of the most inventive geniuses in the world to create technical weapons and stuff like that, and let her be in the Marines and the Army and a certain division of it. It was a background story of that. So she was kind of fully fleshed out. She would be from Harlem, growing up in Harlem, in the lower income side of Harlem, and just come from that upbringing. I created the first issue and published it. And my first issue was published in, right here, you see it, August 2004, finally. And finally getting the issue out. And it was such a proud moment for me. And it still is a proud moment for me that I got my own comic book title out. And actually, I came out with 5 issues of my character Delete. You see Delete issue number 1, Delete issue number 2, 3, 4, and 5. Delete got a lot of buzz in the industry. I was interviewed on AM magazine, which is a New York periodical that came out, and it was on Delete herself. And other magazines that I've been in, I can't even tell you how many interviews I had when I had a podcast interview about Delete from California, which was very weird. They heard about my book in California. I even had a write-up in Comic Book Resources back in the day. I think I still have the periodical on somewhere in the basement somewhere or the garage. But yeah, so, and what Delete is about, when I created Delete, as far as Delete is, now I want you to keep this in mind, Delete is a cyber witch, and she has the power of magic and technology. And I'm going to list some of her powers that I coined and named in different sections of her power. One power is called Magitech, which is the overall power of her abilities. And so it's called Magitech. And within that, she has cyber hexes. She can go into quantum magic as well. That's a newly developed power that I created because of all the quantum things that are happening now. And so I created, when this reboot comes out, she has quantum magic. And I kind of promoted it already when I, throughout the years and things like that she has a new ability now when I do the reboot of the series. Also, she has ability for us to go in and out of cyber reality. And I can go on in the middle of those things and in detail, but not right now in this. So keep in mind, she's African American. She's a high-level genius in technology. She's in the special division of the Marines. And she also has the power of Magitech, which is cyber magic. All right. And she's a cyber witch. And the premise of how she became is that demons are coming through technology instead of the old practices of how they used to come through to possess people. So now they're coming through iPhones, desktops, things like that, and possessing people to take over the world. So it has Delete now is a cyber witch dealing with demonic forces. Okay. So that means she's using magic and technology to deal with demons. All right. So right now, the comparison that I'm seeing now with the promotions of the Ironheart franchise is that right now they came up with a promotion saying that Ironheart is going to use technology and magic to fight the demonic forces. So I'm gonna start from the beginning of how Ironheart was created. The Ironheart character in 2016 was created by Brian Michael Bendis. And Ironheart was debuted, I think, in The Invincible Iron Man Volume 3, number 7 in 2016. That's when she came out. This character, her name is Riri, and she grew up in Chicago in the poverty-stricken side of the street. Just a lot of similarities of my character with that, because my character grew up in Harlem. The elite had to deal with, street gangs, street life, things like that. And also I'm hearing that what Riri is dealing with, that character that was in 2016, was dealing with the same things from what I understand, or maybe not. Maybe it's in the new series. I never really read up on Riri, but I'll do more research on the character comic book Riri. But what I'm hearing from the MCU side of things, she's going to be dealing with street gangs and things like that, not just like, I don't know in what capacity, but I know my character has a past dealing with street life and things like that in Harlem. And I kind of was like, but it was like you can have more than one African-American female superheroine that's a genius in technology. My character doesn't have to be like the only one, but it was just kind of like, that's pretty interesting. But I didn't care about that. So they went along with this character doing, taking the mantle of Iron Man. And plus another thing about my book represented diversity. That's what I wanted my book to represent. That's why I created the slogan, upgrading to a new world, which was dealing with technology and just with social issues and dealing more and upgrading the comic book industry into a different world of more inclusivity and things like that. So this is what I wanted to focus on as my comic book, I guess you could say, trademark, Digital Noixe. And I guess during that time, I think it was in 2009, they were concentrating on diversity now. I think if I remember correctly, it was 2009, they wanted to concentrate more in Marvel of making diversity of their universe and making it more diverse. And so I kind of noticed that. I thought it was a cool thing. It's like Marvel's doing their thing. I've been doing my thing with my comic book issues, and I'm striving. It was a lot of work trying to get these comic books out. And so Michael Bendis created this character, which is Riri, and it's all what I just said. And she's a genius in technology, and she's smarter, I guess, than Tony Stark, and she took over the mantle of his and everything. And so it was that. And so I never really paid attention to or read any other comics to see how similar they are. And I was like, you know what? I'm in my lane, they're in their lane with it. There's nothing wrong with that. And, I kind of side-eyed a little bit. They're similar in that aspect. Both are African-American women. Both are geniuses in technology. Blase, blase. So that was it. So it was just like, I had no issues at all with that there, or saw no, similarities besides that. But when I heard of the latest promotion of the Ironheart series of Disney Plus, and it should be coming out this week, I think, if you see this video, it's kind of surprising to me now that they kind of changed her storyline from what I hear. And now she's dealing with technology and magic fighting demonic forces. And I'm like, this is a total like platform of my book when I started it in 2004. It was just puzzling because both are African-American women. The similarities that they both are geniuses in technology. They now, I guess, both are dealing with magic and technology. And they're both dealing with demonic forces. And so it's just puzzling to me how amazing the similarities are now, especially when I'm coming out and rebooting my title, Delete. And this is what I wanted to just point out. I'm going to point it out. I'm going to watch the series myself and see what more similarities they have. I heard of a character that they have called Hood, and I know Hood is in Daredevil. It's a character usually in Daredevil, and I'm like, why are they having him in the Hood? And I saw the actor that they have, and he looks Hispanic. I forget the name of the actor. He's a prolific actor. He's a new actor, and I think he's a great actor. But I think he's of Spanish descent. And I was wondering why the Hood is going to be the enemy of Ironheart. So what I'm finding out is that the Hood is going to be possessed by a demon or something, and it also has to deal with Mephisto. I think is something. The series is going to deal with Mephisto, and I have a character called Death Player, and he's Hispanic. He's actually Puerto Rican, and he has the power of killing someone and having their abilities. It'll be interesting to see how this series is more similar to my book title. And I have, like you see, if you look and go out and get my issues or read my issues or read my book, try to compare the similarities themselves. You may see a lot of similarities yourself with what they're doing. I don't know yet how much of the similarities are, and I'm not accusing anyone of anything. I'm just seeing a comparison between my character Delete and this character Ironheart, the MCU Disney Plus series. So it's just very interesting, to say the least, of these comparisons that I'm now recently seeing. And especially now, since I'm coming out with my own reboot comic book of Delete, as well as The Positive Omen. Well, that's it. Thank you so much for joining me on my rant on what I see the similarities between Delete and Ironheart right now. But I want you to be happy, stay safe, and take care.